Everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 620. Today we're going to talk about Fog of Love. Now this is a new game that has been out for, I think at the time of this video, maybe a couple of months at most. This is a weird game. This is not like any board game that I've played. This is very much mostly, I would say, a role-playing game. What it is you've got two players, could be anybody. I play this with my wife. And we love it. So spoiler there. But you can just play it with two friends or whatever. Two people. And you're going to be in a relationship. The game is going to set up a scenario for that relationship. How you meet. Like you might have met in high school. You might have been dating for a little while. You might have just gone out for like a Sunday brunch or something. And then you're going to have cards that you're going to play kind of on each other. And you're going to make decisions like where do you want to eat? All kinds of different things. I'm low on money. Will you buy this gift for me and I'll pay you back? Or, just lots of sort of what might look like mundane and some aren't mundane sort of scenarios that you get into in a relationship. And then each player has like these hidden features that are trying to help them score in-game bonus points. All of that stuff kind of matters because it keeps the story on rails and it keeps the game kind of on rails instead of just being like freeform storytelling. It kind of keeps you on the rails. But at the end of the day, and the rules even state this very clearly, it's, for me, 100% just about the role-playing experience. I should say also for my wife as well. We're just about the storytelling and sort of embodying these two people and trying to play it out as we think they might react or as we think it might be funny if they reacted in a certain way. So let's kind of jump in and look a little bit at the mechanics and stuff. But like I said, it's mostly about the role-playing. Okay, so here's the board. The board is a little bit superfluous, but it does organize all the information well. So you can see you've got these different tracks here for these different types of personality traits. Like here you've got discipline, and this is very disciplined on this side, and like disorganized on that side. And here you have curiosity, somebody's very curious, and then on this side it would be somebody that's very closed-minded. So one thing you're going to do is you have these little cool little tray here with these little discs, and so during the course of the game certain actions are going to tell you to mark these different things. So maybe you do something that's sort of a disorganized thing or a careless thing. Now how is that going to happen? How is this going to work? Well, during the course of the game you're going to get different cards in your hand. You can see these are different scene cards, and you can see here these little icons there are going to match some of these icons here. So you have various different decks of these cards. Now these are suite cards. So here's a fun one. This is called Sex in the Outdoors. So this is going to be, there's an opportunity for both of you to have sex outside, and then how do you feel about that? You have different choices, A, B, C, D. Depending on your choice, you're going to mark these different sort of personality traits there. Now the choices are made by these little discs here, like little poker chips. So the blue player, which doesn't have to be a man, and the pink player, which doesn't have to be a woman. You then will make choices based on what you saw. Maybe I pick B, and then the pink girl picks C. I'm assuming she's a woman, but it doesn't have to be. So absolutely, it really gives me a kick to know that someone could find us, or C, no way am I going to let other people see me naked. So the reason that you would choose a certain thing, that's actually a good example, is that you're not choosing based on yourself. You're choosing based on these personality features that you're going to have here, or excuse me, personality traits. So at the start of the game, you're going to be dealt some of these like so. So you might be cynical, you might be patient, you might be manipulative, and so on. You're going to get handed these. You're going to choose 3 and then put them on these little trays here. Let's do like so. And so maybe I'm hypocritical. And so this shows at the end of the game, I want these facing down. I want this, so that would be sincerity. So not very sincere. Obviously, if you're hypocritical, you're not very sincere. So by the end of the game, you're going to get extra points if you have 5 of these. And you can see this actually is shared balance. So in that case, you want markers from both of the players to then, and it's basically the difference of markers here. So if these are up here and you have some there, you're going to split the difference, and then that will be your score there. And that's going to affect your score. And each player has a card here that's pink and blue, man and woman, so however you want to be it. Then you're going to have that, and you're going to track these with those same discs here. So you've got a 10 spot. So as you go around and loop around this, you'll put discs on there to mark that up. You're also going to have like these destiny cards here, and these are all kind of slowly introduced into the game, which I'll get to in a minute. But these are sort of end game, special end game things. That this is if you fulfill your destiny, if this condition happens. This is kind of your victory condition, so to speak. And some of these are going to be like you stay together or you break up, and as you kind of play through the different scenarios, they're going to get more interesting and more sort of complex, or just more nuanced, I would say. You're also going to have an occupation. Let's pick a random occupation. You might be a baker, you might be a psychologist or whatever. And you're going to get this along with some features or some traits. And that's going to give you some kind of starting sort of, chips out here based on how you start out. And then you're just going to go through the course of a scenario. Like you're going to choose, this is the first one, Sunday morning date, kind of sets you up. You start making choices. You go through some chapters here. And then once you play through all the chapter cards, then the game's going to end and you're going to see what happened. And that's pretty much the game in terms of the mechanics of it. You're going through, you're playing these scene cards, making choices. You play a certain number of these cards and you draw from certain decks based on what kind of the chapter and stuff tells you to do. But that's it. Some are very serious cards. Maybe there's like a death in the family or whatever. And so the choices are going to be, again, then based on what you think your character might do based on their features and traits and so on. That's the mechanics of the game, just basically. Okay, so that's a general overview of Fog of Love. Player count, which is usually my first nuts and bolts. It only plays 2 players, so there you go with that. I don't think you'd ever really want to play it with. You could play it as teams or something, I guess. Maybe there's an expansion. You could have like a polygamy or something. So that's that. Play time is going to vary. Some of the scenarios are very short, like that first one is pretty short. And then you can get a couple in there and it's going to be a little bit longer. I think the play times is going to vary based on how the players kind of drive it. So both, we played it 3 times now. But all 3 of our games have taken, about an hour on the short side to maybe an hour and a half. It seemed like it was going to go a lot longer, but it just went to about an hour and a half. So it's going to kind of vary based on that. But you could see, I think if you could play this like super quick, like you could really just kind of not role play it, not embellish, not do anything, just kind of play the cards, count up your points at the end, see if you fulfill your destiny, and get it done in like a half an hour. That would be super lame to play it that way. But if you're going to play it like, but if you're going to play it like as a Euro player would, or somebody that didn't want to role play at all, then you can finish the game in like half an hour and then you would have no fun at all. If you role play and embellish, which the rules tell you directly to do that right from the beginning, as you're setting up your features and your traits and all that stuff, it tells you to tell the other player about it. So like when you're explaining your features, for example, you don't tell them, by the end of the game, we need to both have a total of 6 points in extrovert. And I personally need to have 2 points in gentleness or something. You don't do that. That's against the rule, first of all. But you will sort of holistically maybe describe your character that you're playing in that way. And so that will give the other player kind of a sense of who you are. And then before you even start playing the game, then they're going to start sort of assigning you features. So you actually assign features to the other player. And what that is that you are telling them what you first noticed about them. So you saw them like, walking down the street or whatever, like, oh, I like your pink hair, or I like your broad shoulders, or I like your goofy glasses. And there's a whole bunch of those traits. And so that's going to kind of set up a little bit of your personality on the main board, but it kind of just gives you into the role-playing aspect. And I like that because it's like, I may be walking down the street like this, and somebody says, I really like you for your glasses. But that's not something like I was necessarily projecting into the world to be noticed. I mean, I wear them so I can see, or maybe the way my beard is shaved or not. Something like that. Like I don't necessarily have control over what people notice about me. Not 100%. And so that's kind of a neat aspect. And then you got to go through these different cards, these different scenarios, and you really create a narrative and a story based on that. And so we had a couple of really cool scenarios. Like when we did the first one, I was like a Hollywood actor and really concerned with himself and how he looked and how he was presented and how other people viewed him, but generally a pretty decent human being. And then my wife in that case was a wedding planner, And so it kind of worked out like, oh, she's a wedding planner for Hollywood people, you know. And so that kind of moved along, and we built a cool story out of it with some kind of like very light kind of ups and downs and sort of just kind of day-to-day, I wouldn't even call it drama, just kind of things that would happen, and they were kind of interesting and just kind of learning about each other. And then we had another one where like I was sort of a B athlete, like maybe a minor league athlete, and then I turned into a criminal, and my wife was a very devout church person, but so she stuck with me because based on her religion and all this stuff, and then I turned into a real piece of work. And you know, so that was really cool, and that relationship went absolutely nowhere and completely fizzled out, but she still hung on because of, you know, her traits and stuff. So that was a cool little story. And I'm trying to remember the third one. Gosh, I can't. That was the one we most recently played. I guess it didn't stick out as much. It also fizzled as a relationship goes, but you know, it was just kind of an interesting thing. So the whole thing was the journey of it and the creation of the story together. And you know, playing with my spouse, that's an interesting thing because kind of no matter what you're doing, you're still kind of learning about the other player, even if you weren't playing with your spouse, frankly, you're just playing with your friend. You're still kind of saying, okay, this isn't what you would do in this situation, but I can see how you would have viewed this type of person to do a certain thing like that. So you're still kind of learning about each other and stuff like that. So the situations are all over the place. They're silly, they're serious, they're very serious. They're sexual in nature. They are, I mean, they've run the gamut, really. So it doesn't really pull any punches. It doesn't get like gross or anything or excessive or vulgar or anything like that I've found. And there's different scenarios. Like I said, they start adding like the ability to break up and all that kind of stuff based on the destiny that you choose. So there's a real cool mechanic though between scoring your little satisfaction points versus you know, scoring your end game features, because you're going to get points for those. But when you do match, then you get more points kind of during the game. So there's a balance between staying true to yourself, so to speak, and then kind of losing yourself a little bit to the relationship and trying to match the other player. And it's kind of funny because sometimes you can kind of second guess each other. Well, I wanted you to do that. Oh, well, I figured you would do this for me. And then, you know, you pass each other in the night trying to do for each other, but you're both, you know, the signals get crossed like in any normal relationship with anybody. So that's kind of a cool thing. So just the whole aspect of it is really cool. And I like that it's, you know, it's very, very grounded. I feel like in reality, it's a gender neutral game. It's a same sex or opposite sex and fluid game. You can play it, you know, any different way like that. The pink and the blue don't necessarily mean anything. So that's really cool. The cards themselves, I would say, are, I think they're somewhat gender specific, but not excessively so. I think they just, for the language and stuff, the verbiage, they will fall into that. But I think you could totally just, you know, there's a couple of cards that get like that. I would say the majority of cards are abstracted in a way that it wouldn't matter. And even in the very rare instance that it does, you know, not to speak for anybody, but I feel like you could handle that. And just, you know, that word actually is not Andy or something, you know, it's something else. Anyway, but it's really cool and it's fun. This is my wife's favorite game now. It's replaced Santorini, I guess. Not replaced. I mean, she doesn't have to have a number one game. I don't know why I do that. Yeah, that's dumb. Anyway, so yeah, this is cool. I highly recommend it. You got to get into the role playing of it and all that. Don't play it like a Euro or a card game or something because there's no satisfaction down that road. So anyway, highly recommend everybody takes a look at this Fog of Love. Thanks.